Now let's continue to explore Freud's influence. Let's look at this is a Newsweek magazine did a special issue on March 27th, 2006. It's claiming Freud is not dead. His theory is still around. And we still need to understand his perspectives on how people develop their personality. And one of Freud's best quote is, at the bottom, God is nothing more than an exhausted father. I gave the Chinese translation below. So having reviewed all of this, let's look at criticisms of Freud's theory. The theory is too pessimistic with respect to human nature. And the theory is equating happiness with freedom from attention. Happiness is a lot more meaningful than freedom from attention or anxiety. And the theory overemphasizes the biological influences on personality development rather than we need to attend to more the social, cultural influences on personality development. And the theory overemphasizes the role of unconsciousness in determining one's behaviors. And the theory is not a fully scientific theory because the concepts are not open to direct scientific observations. And the theory shows little ability to predict behaviors. And the data cannot be collected in laboratory settings, so there is little control over the factors having impact on the personality development. And the theory pays too much attention to early stages of life. So those are the common criticisms of Freud's theory. I want to tell you another story, which is the founding father of personality psychology, Alport's personal account with Freud. And you reflect later what was his experience visiting Freud. And while you watched, I want to think about the following questions. Why did Alport go to Vienna? What story did Alport tell Freud? What was Freud's response to his story? And what did Alport feel after the meeting? Let's watch it.
You want to hear about my one encounter with Freud? It did turn out to be very significant in my professional development, so I'll tell you the story briefly. Not long after I finished college, I found myself in Vienna, and that time Freud, of course, was renowned, but not perhaps so much so as a little later. At any rate, I wrote him a note and announced that I was in Vienna, that no doubt he'd be glad to know it. And he was very courteous. In his own hand, he wrote me a note, invited me to his office at a certain time. So I went to the famous Berggasse office, papered in red burlap paper, really, with pictures of dreams. And exactly at the appointed time, he opened the door from his inner office and invited me in, smilingly, and I sat down, and he said nothing. So it suddenly occurred to me that it was up to me to have a reason for calling on him. But actually, I didn't have any. I was just curious. But I fished around my mind, and I came up with an event on the tram car coming out to his office that I thought would interest him. He was a little boy, about 4 years old. And he obviously had a dirt phobia at that age. His mother was a housefrau that was well starched, very prim, and the little boy would say he didn't want to sit there, it's dirty, and he didn't want that man to sit next to him, he was dirty. And so it went, and the whole trip. Well, I thought this might interest Freud to know how early a dirt phobia could be set. He listened till I finished. Then he fixed his therapeutic eye on me and said, "And was that little boy you?" And it was not, honestly, but I felt guilty. At any rate, I managed to change the conversation. But thinking that little episode over, it grew in importance to me because the fact is that Freud, with his tendency to see pathological traits, and most of his people came to see him were patients, of course, it was natural. He'd break through my defenses and get down to business, you see. But actually, he mistook my motives. If he had said, well, here's a brassy young American youth or a tourist who is imposing on my good nature and time, he would have been somewhere near correct, I think. But to ascribe my motivation to the unconscious in this case was definitely wrong. So in thinking that over in subsequent months and years, it occurred to me there might be a place for another type of theory of personality and motivation.
Now you watched it, and you can see Alport did not have a pleasant experience with visiting Freud. He was determined to start his own approach as a young man in his about early 20s. Having said all of this, we still have to credit Freud for his courage and determination to explore human mind in an innovative approach. And as myself, I have visited Freud's home many times in Vienna, and this is home. I hope in the future, if you have time, you should make a visit to his home in Vienna. And you can see this is my visits. First visit in 1994, second visit was 2004, and third visit is 2014. It's looking like I have to make another visit in 2024. But each time when I went to his home, I feel empowered by his courage, his wisdom, his determination to carry on with the theory that is controversial, but he still want to push it to the best he could. And I also visited his home in London, and this is his home in London because in 1938, Freud fled Vienna, went to live in London. He lived there for a year, and he passed away there, and this is his home in London. And I even had the honor of sitting on his chair to be empowered by his ghosting influence. Okay, I have said so much about Freud. We have watched so much about Freud's life story. I hope you'll remember, however controversial Freud's theory appeared to you, he is a great man. His theory has profoundly influenced us in many ways in literature, in medicine, in psychology, sociology, anthropology. And we want to pursue Freud for understanding how our mind, how our personality developed. That's all for this lecture. Thank you.